Now, this was initially going to be a short, but I went far too down the rabbit hole to make it that short, so now we have a long-form video because I went too far down the rabbit hole. But this is how Sonic Generations breaks the entire Sonic timeline. In Sonic Generations, we see the two Sonics run through time to restore the timeline, which means they had to go through the exact points in time that need to be restored as they would have been to restore them, which means that anything they do here should be the new timeline. If all that Sonic Generations says is true, then number one, Metal Sonic has to be fought in the Bad Future Stardust Speedway, which thankfully Sonic 4 Episode 2 seems to confirm, so at least that one seems to be part of what the Sonic Generations timeline stuff is saying, but the past also seems to not make that clear, such as Sonic saying, Sonic acknowledging the strangeness of time travel without the time stones, which would imply that he got at least some of them in Sonic CD. And in the ending of Sonic CD's credits, we see that it looks like him and Metal Sonic are fighting in the present, which wouldn't be a good or bad future. Or my best scenario was that Sonic and I think the present one looking thing might just be because that's just how CD was drawn. It was like Toei Sonic is what we like to call him, his art style. Actual gameplay wise, what I like to imagine is that Sonic knows of the time stones because he got some of them, but he didn't get all of them, and not getting all of them, which would still make him fight Metal Sonic in the bad future. And the reason that I think that this fight has to be in the bad future and Sonic hadn't collected all of them is because if we're going off what Sonic 4 Episode 2 says, then Metal Sonic had to have been fought in the bad future, and he couldn't have gotten the good future afterwards because you can't get any time stones in Metallic Madness. And have you noticed that it's only the main hedgehogs that interfere with Chaos Emeralds that we see that aren't frozen in white space, such as the two Sonics, Shadow, Silver, and Metal Sonic, which really only tells me that Eggman just told the Time Eater, hey, grab Sonic, he's a hedgehog who interferes with the chaos energy, but since the Time Eater's just a time entity, he doesn't really know what a Sonic is. I mean, think about it. Sonic and Shadow aren't frozen, and they're hedgehogs that turn super. Silver's a hedgehog, and he turns super. This is only possible due to the new remasters rewriting, but Metal Sonic's, due to hindsight, Metal Sonic's a hedgehog, technically, just a robotic hedgehog, and he can turn super. And the one thing that stands that, minus Shadow's white space characters not being frozen, minus Rubes that Sonic saves, and I think that's just because they're part of Eggman's success, so they weren't frozen. And that also might be why Metal Sonic isn't frozen either, but we'll just say it's because he's a hedgehog and can turn super. You ever notice that all these hedgehogs that aren't frozen are just hedgehogs that turn super? Those the only ones that don't really make sense to be unfrozen that are unfrozen. And before you say, well, Mecha Mark II can go super, if you're to drag him from the timeline at this point, what's the point from the classic era? We already have Metal Sonic, and if you grab him from the modern era, he's now part of Scrapnik, and he isn't related to Eggman at all anymore. And the Time Eater would see that as a way that Eggman would lose, so wouldn't bring that one here. The only reason that characters like Omega, Orbot, and Cubot, and Big and Froggy from Shadow's White Space are here because E103 Omega is one of Eggman's greatest creations, just like Metal Sonic, and minus his the activation for a brief while in Sonic Forces, he's never lost or been destroyed. Metal Sonic's one of his greatest creations even to this day, and Cubot and Orbot are one of his most loyal creations. Froggy's necessary for the chaos energy that Neo Metal Sonic gets in Sonic Heroes. And if we want to do what we did with Metal Sonic in the bad future for Sonic Generations, then that must mean that Sonic had to have gone through Wave Ocean alone, Shadow had to have gone through Rail Canyon alone. It means that Shadow would have had to have fought and met his or Team Dark's part of Metal Overlord's encounter with them by himself, which can't be, considering Team Dark's relationship wouldn't have been as good, I don't think, if they didn't have to fight Metal Overlord together despite their adventure beforehand. It would have to mean that the gun trucks always had buzzsaws on it, which can't be, considering Sonic's Act 2 has to come even only a few minutes after Classic Sonic's Act 1, which means that somebody would have had to have put this here, which means they're interfering with the timeline, which can't be because they're going to the exact points in time that they came from, which means that they didn't add it after Classic Sonic's Act 1, they added it during modern Sonic's Act 2. And most importantly, it means that Sonic had to have fought in Perfect Chaos in base in Adventure 1 with the boost, which he couldn't have. And that's not even the worst of all of them. And the main one the main reason why I'm making this video is the next piece of evidence, which I'm going to roll the clip before we get into that one of why this one fucks it up entirely. Okay, so it appears I can't find that clip, but that's because it is in the Japanese version of Team Sonic Racing. It is the interaction between Sonic and Silver, where Sonic seems to, well, not even seems to, he does say, like, he reminds Silver of, like, what he said when he was first trying to kill Sonic, which I don't remember the exact line, but I know that the line he says is what Silver says in 06, and that messes with the timeline in a whole bunch of ways. And the Japanese version of the Team Sonic Racing game that I'm thinking of is the one from 2019, after Sonic Generations, by the way. So, what this tells me during this is that, well, for some reason Crisis City exists here, despite the fact that everybody's memories of 06 should be removed. And the fact that not only is Crisis City here, Iblis is still wandering around it, as Iblis's minions are found in the stage for it. And the fact that Sonic has to remember what Silver's in his first interaction was in 06 must mean that Sonic has to remember 06 after this, which means that Crisis City has to have unlocked, like, a memory of it to Sonic, which confuses me even more, because why doesn't anybody else remember that's been in the 06 part of this? Shadow wandered through Kingdom Valley, which I think at least that could be chalked to the fact that despite the fact that 06's memories, like, that everybody's memories of 06 were erased, Kingdom Valley is still a place in the present. I think Eggman doesn't remember it because I don't think he was the one that chose this place. I think this was the Time Eaters doing. But why doesn't Silver remember it? Sonic and him are the ones that fought in Crisis City in Generations, so why does only Sonic remember 06 after this point? And the real answer to that for me is, I don't fucking know. Like I said, Shadow traveled through a 06 stage, but at least you can chalk that up to, like, Kingdom Valley being a place that's still in the present that you can still go to. Hell, Big even says that he's been to Soliana. And the only other thing I can say about Shadow not remembering 06 is he did fight Mephiles, but Mephiles is so dazed and confused, and he knows he's not part of the timeline anymore, but not being part of the timeline, then Crisis City shouldn't exist at all. So the fact that we're even able to go to it seems wrong in, like, every way possible. And if Sonic can remember it from being in Crisis City, which I think that's how he would remember it in Team Sonic Racing, and Silver not remembering it in Team Sonic Racing would must mean that at least some form of memory loss is still apparent in Team Sonic Racing, even if it is a spin-off game. And Shadow still not remembering it, despite being, like, despite having fought Mephiles in the same basically time duration. And Eggman not remembering it because he wasn't the one that chose the place. It just leads me to wonder why Sonic doesn't not remember it, and that's why everything just leads me to believe that Sonic Generations breaks the entire Sonic timeline, and there's not really a way to fix it from this point now. Anyways, but DB out, play the outro.
First of all, your Jordans are completely fake. Second, you Razor Chin, you have absolutely no maidens. And finally, you, my friend, haven't even thought about buying Spotify Premium.
Want a break from the